Hi everyone, good to see you here. We'll wait for a few seconds as you all tune in. Wow, we have a big audience today. In the first minute, which is a great accomplishment. Awesome. Thank you so much all for taking out time from your schedules for this exciting conversation, AI and storytelling. AI is fundamentally reshaping how stories are told, experienced, and even created. But AI and storytelling isn't just a single concept. It takes many different forms depending on how and where it's applied. Whether through filmmaking, immersive media, interactive installations in museums. Today, we'll be seeing these exciting applications and speaking to incredible panelists, bringing in unique perspectives through their unique transformations in their respective fields. So today's discussion will focus on three key areas: AI in film, media, and production, talking about how AI is transforming filmmaking from pre-visualization to AI-generated films. Then we'll be going into AI in interactive and immersive storytelling, how AI is being used beyond the screen in living and responsive experiences. And lastly, the ethics of AI in storytelling, what AI means for creativity, originality, and how the evolving relationship shapes with technology. So I'll introduce our panelists today, and then we'll dive into a quick snippet about their work. So we have Nem Perez. He's a filmmaker, creative technologist, and industry leader with 20 years of experience in creative technology and a decade as a distinguished film director. Born in Chicago and based in LA, he has led productions in Disney, Converse, New Balance, and Walmart through his own production company. Previously at Snapchat, he helped launch Spectacles, AR Lens, and Bitmoji, which all of us Gen Z are aware of. And as the founder of Storyblocker, an AI-powered pre-visualization tool for filmmakers, and executive producer for RT2 Remake, the first AI-generated feature film, Nem continues to push the boundaries of AI-driven storytelling. Thank you so much for being here, Nem.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And we have Sadia Akasha. She's an agile coach and director of product development at Sitara Systems, where she applies AI to interactive storytelling, molecular diagnostics, and nonprofits art initiatives. She began her career at the Broad Institute optimizing research methods for genomic scientists before starting Scrum with Jeff Sutherland, co-creator of Scrum Framework. With extensive experience in social psychology, group dynamics, and agile methodologies, she helps organizations conceptualize and implement AI-driven solutions that enhance creativity and human interaction. Her work includes In Love with the World, an AI-powered installation at the Tate Modern Museum in London, where autonomous aerobes explored new ways to engage AI with people in a physical space. Thank you so much for being here, Sadia.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I'm really excited for this new dimension of our panel today, where we're going to showcase the videos of their work before diving into the conversation to get you all hooked. So I will share my screen now. And let's look at the T2 remake that Nem has worked.
I think a full feature movie is kind of out of the question currently with, with the way the technology is right now. Although there are some lunatics right now that are creating their own version of Terminator 2, wholly generated by AI.
Congratulations on making one of the first feature-length artificial intelligence films. It's absolutely incredible what we've accomplished here, and I can't wait for the world to see this.
What is a tic-tac? Who is your daddy, and what does he do? I'll be back. I hope you leave enough room for my fist, because I'm gonna ram it into your stomach. That just lines up. Hasta la vista, baby.
Awesome. That was really cool. Super exciting. And now we'll turn the gears a bit and look at AI installations in Tate Modern Museum. Let me share my screen again. Just a moment. Yep. Wow, really, these are two different worlds, and really exciting to bring the perspectives together, kind of blend it in today's panel. So hope you all loved it, and that's setting some context. So yeah, let's get into it. Both of you are in cutting edge AI, but in different ways. Nem, you're using AI to create films, while Sadia, you're exploring AI in living and evolving presence. So let's break that down. So starting with you, Nem, AI is being used in filmmaking for everything from script analysis to visual effects. And one of your projects that I was checking on your website, you can check his portfolio as well, which is really interesting projects and blogs. One of the project that I looked at is In Traveler's Dilemma, a fully created project using AI. So how did that process kind of challenge you or expand your creative vision? And I think, the first time you used AI as a for generative AI creation for filmmaking, how was your experience?
Yeah, so you're referring to a trailer that I made called The Time Traveler's Dilemma. And essentially what this was, this came out when Runway first announced their video models. And really, the seed of this was that I had this really ambitious idea for a science fiction movie as long as I could remember my whole life, right? And I think a lot of us have these really ambitious ideas for movies that, for most of us will never get made, right? Because these movies cost hundreds of millions of dollars to get made. However, as soon as this video model came out, as well as the image model that Midjourney had, I immediately saw it as a tool to empower this vision and get this idea out of my head and make it a reality. So what I did was I made a trailer for a science fiction movie called The Time Traveler's Dilemma, and it was a mix of all of my favorite movies like Mad Max and Back to the Future and Alien and Dune, and it mixed all of these genres together. And I created the trailer, and that's what led me to get accepted into Runway's creative partnership program. It allowed me to meet a lot of the other filmmakers in the community, and it really sort of kickstarted my journey as an AI filmmaker. Prior to that, of course, I already had a career directing commercials and music videos, but it was this trailer that really set things off for me.
Wow, awesome. And yeah, it's amazing to see how far you've come along with creating a whole film, feature film with generative AI. So we'll talk more about, the feelings around that in a bit, and kind of the innovative aspect and the ethical, how do you balance that effectively? But coming to you, Sadia, we loved watching the video just now. And your project in Love with the World wasn't just about creating content for AI using AI. It was about creating an existing space where you can have a whole new experience with AI, something we don't really see in the traditional uses and applications of AI. So, can you explain us, how aerobes work, and can you give us, like the whole audience, like some context about the video, and what were you trying to create for the audience?
Right, absolutely. So In Love with the World was a project that was commissioned by the Hyundai Commission at Tate Modern, and Annika Yee is the conceptual artist that actually won that commission. And she reached out to me and my partner at Sathara Systems, Nathan Lockenmeyer, um, to help her build this artificial intelligence world, but bring it to the same space that we humans occupy. And I think at the core of this project, the question that we were really probing together was, can we change our relationship to artificial intelligence, and open up our minds, so that we don't experience that relationship in terms of a master servant, or some sort of a domination, or aggressive force. So instead of kind of looking at AI as something that's going to take over the world, and, or something that we have to use and we have to make sure to chain it to our own capitalistic needs, what if it was just something that existed alongside us, like another form of intelligence? And so that was really, I think, the core question for this project that we were exploring. And we really wanted audiences to come in and feel like they were cohabiting the space at the Tate Modern. And the video, I'm so glad that you showed it, because I think it really helps to kind of see what it would have felt like, and just see the scale of the installation. Just this large warehouse. It was a power generation warehouse, where these creatures that look very both mechanical and lifelike are essentially floating around and ambulating through the space in a very peaceful manner. They're chilling. They're just doing their own thing. They're vibing, and you're there with them. You're doing your own thing, and you're just enjoying being in the presence of these creatures together. So that was really, I think, the crux of it. And hopefully later on we can explore more about how they were kind of put together and all of that.
Yeah, awesome. And just to remind the audience, at the last panel, we had Nathan Lockenmeyer, who's working with Sadia on this project. So we couldn't get enough of their company, so we had her join us at this panel. But
Appreciate
yeah,
it.
really cool stuff. So now let's kind of jump into AI-driven tools, and talking about, the exciting things, the doors it opens up for creators. But is it really making things easier, or is it just shifting kind of the skill sets required in this field? So, Nem, coming to you, you recently kind of founded Story Blocker, a visualization tool for filmmakers and artists. And it is used to create complex 3D scenes without deep technical expertise, so kind of lowering the barrier to entry in this field. How do you think AI is democratizing kind of filmmaking, making it more and more people to kind of enter, create, be exposed to interesting kind of ideas and kind of introduce the field to new challenges and opportunities?
It's honestly creating like the next evolution in filmmaking. I'm super grateful that I'm sort of at the heart of it all in Los Angeles. Essentially, what's happening, like I said before, is, you know, filmmaking is a very, I guess, political process, right? And it takes a lot of people. You have to know a lot of people to make a movie, and you need a lot of money to make a movie. That's one key point. And what AI is doing is allowing people who are just brilliant, brilliant storytellers to be able to tell their stories without needing permission from anyone. And to me, that's so beautiful. And what we're seeing now is this new wave of filmmakers who are telling incredible stories that will make you cry and make you feel things and give you new perspectives that maybe you didn't even know about before. One of our filmmakers that worked on the T2 project was from Ghana. And, someone from Ghana wouldn't have the same opportunity as someone who lived in Hollywood to make a big picture movie and something like that. And I remember something that I overheard from another interview that he had is that, um, had he not had been picked for our T2 remake, he might have given up on that dream. And what we're seeing now is a lot of these filmmakers for the first time being able to, just like I did with Time Traveler's Dilemma, they're able to finally get that story out. And a lot of them are getting picked up and getting seen by Hollywood as well. So, like, I'll give you an example. 10 filmmakers who worked on our T2 remake now have development deals and are working on feature films for Hollywood. I myself, like I said, like you mentioned, I have a long history in working in film, doing commercials and music videos. However, I can never open that door to make feature films. And because of our T2 remake and because of the short films that I've made with AI, I'm now working in Hollywood. I'm working with Blumhouse, working with A24, working with these real legit production companies doing the work that I've always wanted to do. And what allowed me to do that was to finally tell my story without having permission from someone else to tell that story. And I think that that's the case that we're seeing with a lot of filmmakers right now using AI.
Wow, that's a really nice narrative because we usually hear, AI disrupting art and art industries in a negative light and mainly, kind of taking away, the opportunities. But it's really nice to see this other side of the coin where it's creating more opportunities, giving people more kind of equal stance on different opportunities around. So that's really cool. And kind of establishing more international partnerships because you can widely access these tools from anywhere. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
With regards to you, Sadia, in at Sithara Systems, your work goes beyond art. You're thinking about the design aspects, you're thinking about the technology. I think the last time you spoke, you mentioned that you come from more of a psychology background, whereas Nathan comes from more of a tech background.
Mhm.
So, kind of blending those ideas together, going across disciplines. So, you have applied kind of AI across many disciplines, from molecular diagnostics to kind of these social impact projects, which also require to think about domain specific knowledge, like working on aerobes. How do you think about the biology, how things work, the aquatic kind of life that they would portray. So, how do you see AI's role in shaping not just storytelling, but also how people engage with different types of technology on a day-to-day life, kind of in their day-to-day lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI is really, in a lot of ways, it's another tool in our toolbox, and we can't, think about it as as something that is taking away. It's really just opening new doors, much like how Nem described it. I mean, even in this project, in particular for Annika, this is something, new that she was exploring and was able to partner with us on. And for us, what we leaned back on was actually very early research into AI. So we went back to the first few books written about AI, the first few research studies done about artificial intelligence and developing artificial intelligence from the 1980s. A book called Project in a book called Boyd's by Craig Reynolds was really important and foundational for this work. So this is kind of going before, further back from large data sets and data models. So going back to the foundations of it and really trying to bring it into the human space, a tangible space. I think the whole idea, especially in this project, was to just kind of open up people's minds. And I think it had an effect on us. It had an effect on everyone that was involved in the project for at the Annika U Studio, at the Tate Modern, the security guards that worked at the Tate, the visitors that came, the docents that were there. People at the end of this installation had a different relationship with the idea of different kinds of intelligences because they were cohabiting with them, especially the folks that were working at the Tate, I would say, the day-to-day folks. Um, and I think that's really what we're trying to broach is thinking outside of the box and not letting kind of labels or ideas define how we use different kinds of AI models in our work. I know at Satara Systems, we are pretty well integrated with different AI tools. We just use that as part of our day-to-day functionality. So everything from just, helping to digest large academic papers. So we work with museums, and a lot of times we are given research from scientists, and we have, content strategists and researchers within our team, but they also will use the help of AI to go through and say, okay, well, here are all the papers that I've read on this topic. Here's what I've received. Put together a quick document that summarizes all of this. And at the end of the day, the person that's driving the research, they're the ones with the vision in their mind. And you have to have that person driving it. You have to have a vision. But why not have an AI companion help you with different little, tasks throughout your life? Why not allow it to give you the space to wonder and think more broadly and more deeply? And I think that's how I think about AI. And I hope that's how people start engaging with technology if they aren't already, to just enable them to enjoy being human a bit more.
Yeah, I love the positive spin around AI because a lot of times we just hear about, kind of the chaos happening because of it. But it's nice to see there's, hope and there's ways we can kind of cultivate AI in our lives that kind of enhance and kind of augment ourselves. And I love how the process that you take within your design is kind of fusion of left brain and right brain, thinking about all these details, but at the same time, kind of combining that artistic intellect in. So really cool. And then we have AI adding on to it. Awesome. But again, of course, keeping all the positive things in mind, with great power comes great responsibility. So that's a big
Definitely.
question, especially as you kind of create these systems that are in spaces where humans could potentially be vulnerable to their impact. So let's talk about the AI, the ethics, and the future of storytelling. So we all are aware AI raises big ethical questions about authorship, agency, intellectual property, especially in the arts field, and even our relationship as a whole. So, Nem, there's been a lot of debate about AI's role in filmmaking. You also mentioned being an AI filmmaker, which is something new we hear these days. Especially when it comes to copyright and originality, how do these things play out? As someone, actively using AI in your work, how do you navigate these ethical challenges of AI generated media?
Yeah. So first I wanted to touch on something that I was thinking about when you were mentioning sort of the public's opinion about AI. When we started producing our T2 remake, we started working on that during the writer's strike, and I live in Hollywood. And for me, it was a really scary time to be working within AI because part of me felt like I was the bad guy when in fact I was, in the same group as everyone else who was protesting. So the reason why we made that film is to showcase the good side of AI and this flourishing community that was sprouting from the world of AI and from all these communities that I was a part of. Because, on the surface and in the media, you see that like all these conversations, how Skynet, which is the AI in Terminator 2, is going to come alive and destroy us and take over the world. And so we wanted to make Terminator 2 as a parody. So Terminator 2, our T2 remake, sorry, is a parody remake of Terminator 2. And in parody law, what you do is when you make a parody film, you're changing the meaning of the original film, which is what our intent was. And we were adding commentary and adding to the conversation of AI in the modern day age. So parity law is how we went about with our T2 remake so that we wouldn't cross any legal boundaries that we weren't allowed to cross, right? So we consulted with a bunch of lawyers and attorneys about parity law and also fair use law and how the work needs to be transformative. However, these laws are very, very complicated and they can only be determined in court. It's not black or white. So when we created our T2 remake, we decided to not commercialize it, not monetize it, not making any money. It was really just purely for experimental purposes. Okay. So that's kind of how we navigated that film. However, we're working on on our next feature film, which is an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. And this time we're making sure that we are purely ethical. And one of those ways is this is actually through guidance from the Copyright Office and how to use AI tools to make sure that the final frame of your film or your image or your creation is majority made by humans, or at least there's craft involved. That's actually why I really like showcasing that behind the scenes of the movie, because when you watch that, you see that there was a lot of craft involved. We had voiceover artists, we had composers, we had visual effects, we had live action. And I think that people do have a misconception on AI filmmaking and think that we just press a button and out comes a movie, when in fact, the best AI movies, maybe not the AI slop as people call it, but the ones worth watching incorporate a lot of craft, right? And I think that for me, that's what AI ethical filmmaking is. It's when you don't allow the machine to do a majority of the work. Really, you are still researching, you're still coming up with stories, you're still involving traditional VFX or traditional filmmaking. And that's part of my mission with Storyblocker. And my mission with these films is to showcase how there's craft involved. Now, there are other means that are sort of starting to sprout up, which are ethical models, which are these AI models that are ethically sourced. There is a group in LA called Moon Valley that is currently working on that mission. And so you'll see a lot of that sprout up. And with Alice in Wonderland, we're also working with a group out in Germany called the Fair Codex. And they're looking at everything that we do to make sure that we're not crossing any legal boundaries that we can't cross, even with or without AI. I think that the rules still are the same. Like if I'm copying something that Disney made, like with or without AI, it's not legally, I can't claim copyright over that. So they're looking at everything that we do to make sure that we have fair use over our creation.
Wow. The fact that you talk so much about the legality and how you kind of have to, take the legal route specifically, keeping in mind the parody or the remake, it really shows and like kind of radiates your kind of dedication to using AI ethically, but at the same time, kind of enhancing kind of the mission of what you want to convey. And it's very clear how the public discourse is very scattered around this topic, because it's just so much in the infancy stage right now, with so many developments and things happening. But I think as time goes by and with more conversations like these, I think it'll be more clear as to what perspective you bring in filmmaking. But really nice to see how AI is kind of adding on to the creativity aspect. And I wonder how, the new age movies would be, a mix of experiences. And it'll be interesting to see how they panned out with AI, with a human kind of teaming. Um, really
I
cool.
just respond to that real quick. I thought it was really
Yeah.
interesting hearing you speak about putting the behind the scenes in the forefront, really kind of foregrounding all of the human work that went on behind the scenes. And it's interesting to me only because just like the two trailers that we showed are so different. The In Love with the World project, actually, we decided not to talk at all about the technology during the entire run. There was a moratorium about any of the conversation around how it was built, how they function, even how they ambulate the space and the materials they're made from. So it was taking a complete opposite track where it wasn't about AI per se. It was just what is your feeling when you're in the space. And we were lucky enough to do some flight testing for about 2 weeks and continue to stay in London for a little while. And we got to kind of hear people in the space, the visitors coming through and experiencing it. And there were definitely conversations that people would have. And they were like, well, do you think that there are strings that we can't see? Is this a completely physical experience? And there were lots of theories, but there were just as many children that would run around underneath and spin, and people that would lie down and start doing breathing exercises. So I think it's really, it's really funny the different tracks that can be taken with these kind of artificial intelligence based projects. Because yeah, in our case, it was sort of let's not talk about that at all. Let's just throw the experience out there and let people connect without their preconceptions. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's fun.
I've actually seen really negative effects happen when you don't talk about the craft of AI
Mhm.
filmmaking, because people think that you didn't source your material correctly, or you ripped someone off, or all of these things. So I actually think that education in AI filmmaking is actually a really important aspect of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I
Awesome.
think in our case, no one thought there was any artificial intelligence. They thought it was all, a little bit of magic, a little stagecraft. So that's, yeah.
Interesting. That's really cool. Because a lot of times, when you build something, you want to kind of show off and, bombard people with the technical jargon. But it's really nice how, you don't touch on the story that you're trying to kind of convey. You don't touch on like how you kind of built it, but you let people create that story in their mind and let it be personalized. So
Exactly.
that's a really unique concept and kind of shows how the powerful medium you're creating for people to experience different. So really curious to hear, what other projects are you working on in this kind of space? Sitar System, I'm guessing has like a bunch of contracts with, companies and like these kind of groups that work on installations. And I know you also worked in some museums
Mhm.
in the US and external. So excited to hear more about, the creative, unexpected ways you are contributing to this.
Yeah, well, we do work with museums, and we also work with like private companies and official organizations that have business centers or visitor centers. So our work is always at the digital um, interfacing with people in physical space. So as long as there's a physical component to it of presence, then we're interested in exploring that space. Um, and some of the work that we are actually exploring right now is really around creating customized stories and customized interactions for people. So, for example, if you know that you have a head of state visiting, or if you know that you have the CEO of, Honda visiting, and we recently did some work with the Port of Long Beach, for example, and we built out their business development centers in digital interactives, and they're all gesture-based because they wanted everything to be touch-free and hands-free and sensitive to different kinds of concerns after COVID, kind of globally, right? But if you know that you have certain folks coming through, you should be able to customize what it is that you're showing them in your space. And right now, a lot of that is done through tons of research that people put in, right? So there are teams of folks that are going through and identifying their most important VIPs, their most important clients, future clients that they're building relationships with. And so what we're thinking about is how can we use that research to help them create really unique and customized stories. So as they go through and touch on all of these different interactives, they're getting exactly what's relevant to them. They don't have to kind of swipe through all of this other information and other storylines that may not be relevant. We can probably work with them to create lots of different tracks and be able to customize those on the fly. So that's something that we're exploring right now. And um, I mean, I don't know, it sounds exciting to me just because it's kind of similar where there are people already putting in the work and it's just giving them the keys to make their work a little bit easier to bring to the forefront. So a little bit closer to what Nem was speaking to. So that's something that we're working on. Um, the other kind of project that we are working on, I can't get into the details yet, but the new museum is launching another building, a new building that they're expanding into. And they will have an exhibition opening up this fall. Let me see if I can find the name of this project. It's called New Humans, Memories of the Future, and it's opening this fall 2025. So there will be something there that we'll be involved in, and I'm really excited about it. I hope we can talk about it soon. So.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, please let us know when it's up. We'll definitely email our participants joining us today because I'm really excited to see kind of it coming to life and, seeing the videos, hearing so much about it, excited to experience it in real life. So we've talked a lot about, AI as a tool, and its evolving creative force, but curious to talk more about where this is all headed and whether, we have a sustainable infrastructure to keep this going. So looking ahead, Nim, do you think we'll see fully AI generated films? Obviously, you said not fully, but human AI teaming in films that are as emotionally compelling as human directed only. Do you think AI will just be a supporting tool or will it completely change the landscape?
Yeah, I think that so storytelling is such a human quality that we have, right? For us to give that up, I don't see that. I don't want that either. Even as an AI filmmaker, I don't ever want to see the day where you press a button and a whole film comes out and, I don't really think that that's going to be an enjoyable experience. So for me, I think that a human will always be the driver, whether it's one human or 10 humans or, however many. At the end of the day, there will always be a vision that will be the driving force of the story. That's my opinion, and that's the future that we are building with Storyblocker. Um, yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I mean, there are already films that are made with AI by humans that are as emotionally compelling as ones not made by AI. So absolutely, yes. I think that this year we're going to see a lot more feature films that are made entirely by AI. I know at least 10 off the top of my head that are being produced currently right now, including one that is written by the writer Paddington. They're working on an AI feature film. We're working on our next feature film, which is the AI Wonderland film. And I didn't say one really, really interesting thing about that, which where I think the future is headed, and Sadia said something about this as well, is this idea of personalizing the content that you watch. And we are approaching that by letting audience members upload a photo of themselves before they watched a movie with permission. And as they watch the movie, they'll have a cameo appearance in that movie. So imagine a future where you go see a Pixar type of film with your kids, and you and your whole family have a guest role appearance in that film. I think that is absolutely spectacular, and that's a really, really fun experience. And that is something that is possible today. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more customized, personalized content that is generated by AI to serve the audience. We can customize more than just the image. If a person gives us their favorite food, and it's a dinner scene, they might be eating their favorite food right there during that dinner scene. Or if maybe there's a favorite joke that they have, they can tell that joke right there in front of the audience and see what the audience's reaction are. So I absolutely love that idea. We're going to be testing it actually in LA in the next couple months to prepare for AI Wonderland. But AI Wonderland will be one of the first customizable feature films that you can watch in
Wow.
theaters. Really cool.
Yeah, it's intriguing. And, as a founder and entrepreneur as well in this space, I think there's a lot of scope to kind of build this business model further as things go, as personalizing kind of AI avatars and all these things kind of come up. Really cool. One question I had was, how do these films will be compared with existing, human directed films only? These movie rating systems that we have for different age groups and all these kind of metrics that we use. How would that play out in the future?
Not everyone agrees with me, but I think that AI films will be in their own category by
Mhm.
themselves, right? So if you think of how Toy Story introduced the world to CG animated films, right? AI films are like this weird in between. They're like not quite live, they're not quite live action, and they're not quite, I mean, technically they are computer generated images, but
Mhm.
they kind of live in their own sort of category. And I think that
Right.
as this medium evolves, we're going to start seeing that, oh, it's an AI film. It's separate from a live action film. It's separate from an animated film. It's going to be its own unique category. At least that's how I see it. So I think that AI films will have their own unique quality, their own unique look and feel, their own unique demographic, maybe
Mhm.
of people that enjoy that. Just sort of like anime. Anime has a very unique demographic within animation that is separate from Pixar, right? So I think that we're
Mhm.
going to be seeing like this specific category grow as the art form evolves.
Wow. Very insightful.
Yes.
Do you want to add
To just
anything?
respond to that, yeah. So I think that is very, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for filmmaking, that it would have its own category. And conversely, I think in the interactive and installation space, it's going to blur the lines for sure. And a lot like any kind of smart features that we have on various devices, like smartphones and smart watches and Fitbits, you over time kind of get used to AI being just one of the components, just one of the things that makes that interactive piece of technology smarter than it was previously. And I think that whole path of customizing and kind of individuating the content, individuating your experience, that's really where AI is going to just start to blend in quite a bit more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'm also interested to hear more about kind of your design process as you navigate, Miss Sadia especially, because how do you decide how much to use AI and kind of where's the limit? And
Mhm.
kind of even with kind of the movies, as you mentioned, there'll be a different category. But how about like when you're mixing AI in maybe pre-visualization,
Mhm.
but then directing it fully human led,
That's a really good point.
how would that kind of pan out?
Yeah, I think for us in our studio, we use AI more for the conceptual backgrounding, just to help us think things through, create visualizations to talk about, for brainstorming sessions, to help drive the direction that we're going. But the final product for us is always human made. And that's just the direction that we've taken in our studio. We have frank conversations about it internally all the time. We're a group of creative technologists. We're all playing around with all the new tools that come out and that are available. But we also want to, feel that we are producing something that is made by us and it's not entirely produced by AI. So we might um, early on in the process use AI tools just to come up with concept images, to get like a mood board together, to refine the direction. I think even for little things like we're going to give out these commemorative pins for an event that we're going to, right? And so just for the initial design, we did some of our research and then threw a bunch of images into Midjourney and said, can you help us come up with a few designs based on Las Vegas and this chapter? And here's, our logos and everything. But we had 4 or 5 different brainstorming sessions where we went through and we kind of refined it and tweaked it from there. And we ran with it internally from that point onwards. But it's just sort of for us, it's kind of early stage idea generation kind of partnership, really, that we use AI for. But then the refinement, the fine tuning, and again, having that vision at the end of the day, it's all going to have to come from us. And I don't think we feel comfortable putting something out that is fully, AI generated. It's not turnkey. So, and I think, to the other project that we were talking about earlier, about kind of creating content that is uniquely um, selected for people. We experience that now with algorithms in our social media feeds. And I think what we're not interested in is creating that, like recreating that scene from Minority Report, if anyone remembers that, where, you have these like contacts and Tom Cruise is going through an airport or some official space, and there are all of these advertising banners popping up in his peripheral vision while he's just trying to navigate and get through to something. I don't want to live in that world. We don't really want to do that. And I think it's really more about how can we use these capabilities to kind of help people get the messages and the stories that they want to tell and that we want to tell out there, rather than just kind of going whole hog with the fire hose of here's all the ads that that we can post your eyeballs. So there is something to be said about being thoughtful about how you're using these tools and what is the reason that you're using them.
Awesome. Yeah, an amazing discussion today. If you audience members, if you have any questions for our panelists today, feel free to drop into the Q&A. You can also add your comments in the Q&A, what you felt watching the videos, what you felt hearing more about this unique perspective. And yeah, we have our panelists adding a few links in the chat. You can take a look at that as well. I think I can add it to all. But I guess one question I had for both of you as we wait for more questions. We have a lot of students in the panel today listening in, and a lot of us are intrigued by AI and approach AI or like deal with AI or associate with AI through their different respective lenses of life, different disciplines, lived experiences, backgrounds. Both of you have unique experiences and you wear multiple hats. Nem, you're an entrepreneur, you're a filmmaker, and a designer. Sadia, you had a psychology background coming in. You work with a lot of technologists. You work with artists. You work with so many stakeholders, and you have to keep in mind, multiple kind of dimensions and factors when doing your work. What do you both think are kind of these opportunities in AI within storytelling for students to dive into? Students from a technology background, students from humanities, students from the arts. What advice do you have for us, or what kind of thoughts you want to share?
Um, for me, something that's always helped me is just to stay curious, experiment, don't be afraid to go after something or like to even showcase what you're working on. Like I said earlier, my wife was like really, really scared for me to work on that film during a writer's strike. And I'm so glad that I went after that and I did that because so many doors opened up for me. So yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, that's the one piece of advice I would give, is just sort of, just stay curious and don't be afraid.
So,
Yeah, I think I would say in particular that the students in humanities, it's really important for humanities students to get involved in the AI space, and just really become very familiar with new technologies and new options. What I don't want to see is, siloing of new technologies to folks who have only a certain background upbringing. And I think what myself and Nathan and Nem and probably a lot of the folks that you've had here have in common is that we continue to wend our way throughout life and throughout our career, that curiosity and that open-mindedness and kind of not staying within certain guardrails of like, this is my career, this is the line that I've studied. It's just so important, just like this series, Ethics Quest across disciplines, to continue to have those cross-discipline opportunities to work with each other, to experiment together. I think that is a very fertile space. And I think it brings a lot of diversity of thought and considerations that are so important in approaching new tools and um, really incorporating them into our lifestyle, without kind of losing that train, of yeah. So,
yeah, really nice. Because a few years, back, let's say 10 years back, it was always like people used to ask kids the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? But now I think the question is reframed to kind of what kind of impact you want to have when you grow up. And you can have kind of the similar impact no matter what field you're in. You don't have to be in technology, you don't have to be in the humanities. It's not like any constraint at this point. You can be in the humanities and get to work with technologists. And with you, Sadia, you get to work with such incredible people, like no conventional kind of pathway of, your contracts or customers. One day you have a museum to work with, the other day you were working at a children's hospital. I think that's one project I think I
mhm.
also checked out about yours. So it's really nice to see kind of you both pushing the boundaries of the conventional norms of professional professions and in the AI art space. We have a question in the chat. I think for you, Nem, specifically, how are you planning any educational AI generated films? That's a really great question, because right now, students have a very short attention span. So getting AI generated films, that's an exciting kind of hook, related to educating patients, health personnel. So simulation experience can be used more widely.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many opportunities in this field to tell stories. Me personally, maybe not the best person for that role. I'm more of a science fiction, fiction type of person, but I do have friends that are using AI for documentary filmmaking. I have some friends that are doing some stuff for the History Channel using AI for reenactments, something like that. Um, I know that there is a studio called Mini Studio that is doing children's content, all based around values and education, and they're also doing a personalization aspect
Mhm.
where they allow children to star in these short films. Um, and yeah, I think there are so many, again, this is really a limitless type of thing where, as long as you have a story to tell, or whatever, it's up to you to tell that story however you want to tell it. So yeah, I mean, like for me personally, maybe not the best person, but I think that whoever asked that question, I would maybe ask you to try some of these tools, or maybe do some research to see if someone out there is doing some of this stuff. I know that there was recently some stuff went viral on TikTok, which is like POV of a miner during the gold rush type of thing, and it's like very, very kind of like historical but exaggerated. So I think like things like that are kind of cool and unique and fun. So yeah, no, definitely. There's actually the kids market is a huge market for a lot of this stuff. Again, I just hope that whoever is creating the work does their research and does it ethically and create quality content, especially for children. I think that's very, very important to make quality content.
Awesome. And Sadia, do you want to add anything to this? Because I know Nathan and you are involved with the History Communications Institute. And a lot of like the sentiments expressed in the previous panel were about, how AI kind of doesn't fully give a clear image of, things we see on TikTok about, wake up in the 19th century, or, these kind of things that we see AI generated viral videos about how, the world looked like in a particular time period. Sometimes it doesn't effectively showcase the true realities of that time period, maybe exaggerates. How do you kind of, what thoughts do you have, and how do you think, the future generation of filmmakers or artists should balance that with research and, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you always have to do your own research. At the end of the day, AI is a lot of what we find is a regurgitation or a mirror of, our society and our digital footprint. Whatever we fed it is kind of what it has to give back to us. And so if we have a lack of diversity, or if we've skewed our historical accounts to be from a certain perspective, then that is what it knows, and it's going to mirror that back to us. So I think doing the research is extremely important, and correcting your partnership with the AI, correcting it throughout the process is going to be key. Um, and I think this is where it kind of goes back to it's a tool and it's a partner in sort of the brainstorming and the sausage making part of it, but you
Yeah.
can't take what you get out of AI models as, this is it, this is the truth, or this is the finished product. You have to have a person kind of driving it and asking questions, interrogating it a little bit, and helping to direct that the production itself. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think one thing I did want to mention, kind of related to the humanities question that came up earlier, was just in this project in particular, in Love with the World, one thing that we baked in here was also quite a bit of psychology research around personality traits. And one of the ways that in this story we brought the characters to life was by imbuing them with archetypes, certain personality archetypes based on research on jellyfish, like animal ethnographies, and
Mhm.
also traits from ocean, which is called the Big Five personality trait model. So we looked at research and we kind of created this model of, okay, well, if we take these traits and we imbue these creatures, and we kind of extend this thought out and say these creatures are living in this physical space that's kind of like an ocean, but it's in the air. They're kind of swimming through the air. And they're similar to jellyfish, but we don't really know the internal lived experience of a jellyfish, but these are the observations that we have. We kind of created these personality models for them, and that is what gave them this very life-like experience, right? When you walked into the space, there was not a randomness. There was intentionality to the creatures. It was not chaotic. You could start to project your own story because there was clearly something that each of the different Arabs were going after or doing. Um, and I think that's another interesting way to think about it, where if you have that cross-discipline aspect to your team building, to your projects, then you can bring in those kinds of factors and kind of deepen your projects. But if your education is siloed, or if you're not approaching it from a cross-disciplinary methods, then you may not come up with that idea. So I think that is a very important thing to pursue.
So, Nem, I think we have a question for you. You mentioned you were working on A24 and Blumhouse. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on either of those so far? Also, between T2 and Aliens, which do you think is the better sequel?
That's a great question. Both directed by James Cameron. Terminator 2 for sure for me. I remember seeing that movie in theaters with my dad, and that was probably one of the first like real blockbuster movies that I ever saw as a kid, and it had a huge impact. A couple years later, or yeah, a couple years later, I think Jurassic Park came out. So for me, growing up, I grew up around these like huge blockbuster movies. And then yeah, I recently worked on the Megan 2.0 movie for Blumhouse. I did a lot of previs for that movie. I helped the director figure out certain scenes. So I'm really excited about that because That was like the second film I've ever worked on. Actually, the other one was for Blumhouse. It was also another AI film. So I'm starting to add credits to my IMDb for working on films, and for me, that's like super, super exciting. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for this exciting conversation. I think this has been one of the most memorable experiences within the panel for me. Kind of seeing your projects and then talking to you about it, like a true dream, because a lot of times we hear about creators, we hear about artists, and then we kind of have these questions in our mind. But it was nice to kind of directly grill you with questions and hear your cool perspectives. And thank you so much for being so generous with your time and just being so humble, sharing every little detail. And yeah, I think we'll keep these conversations going. If you have any more resources and videos you'd like to share, I can share in the post-panel email with our audience. And we'll have this recording also shared with you all, so you can share with more people, because this is a really interesting aspect of AI that we don't really see often. So yeah,
Thank you so
awesome.
much. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this was super fun. So glad, I'm happy I was able to do that.
Yes, and we have NEM's company website here. So if anyone wants to check out, and Sadia, I will also add yours to the post panel email with like the videos that you both showcased today.
Sounds
But yeah,
good.
thank you so much, both of you, and
Thank you.
we'll be in touch.
Take
And
care.
hope to see you all at the next panel in August. We have a break for the summer, so see you all back in August.